Hey guys, and welcome back to another YouTube video. And in today's episode, I am just kind of going to be sharing gratitude, some lessons that I've learned, and just kind of like where I am in my life. Not really giving like girl chat, not really giving full deep dive, but I just kind of want to share some revelations, right? Like, I can honestly say life gets so much better as you like just stick with it. Bruce, you've got to stop crying. Come on, if you're going to get up here. Come on, come around here. You're going to knock my tea over. Sorry, y'all. Bruce is crying and was like bothering me. Anyway, okay, just chill. So I can honestly say that like life really does get better the more you keep going. And I don't say that because it's like, oh, I'm just like in a space, but it's like, no, I'm seeing like how life really can come full circle if you just keep pressing and like keep persevering and keep pushing forward. We don't always know how things are going to turn out. We don't always know how, you know, things are going to work out for us. We don't always know how those things are going to be, but I can assure you that it is actually going to work out and things will turn around. So I just kind of want to start this video off by encouraging anybody who may be going through something. You may be having like a tough time right now. You may, you know, feel like you are in a, like you're in a rut. You don't really know what's next. You don't really feel like there's anything looking up or looking out for you. I genuinely just want to let you guys know like things can get better and they will get better. So just, you know, continue to hang in there, continue to put your best foot forward, continue to press through. But I kind of want to start this off by talking about, you know, I've seen a lot of people talk about female friendships, and as someone who, this shirt, I think it says, on the back it says like ways to say I love you. I just got it yesterday. It was so cute. But it made me think about like friendships and, you know, my personal journey with friendships. You know, I think growing up, you know, being a girl is hard. I tell people this all the time, like, you know, the jealousy and all of that, it really comes from being like compared, right? And I know people don't want to hear this, but sometimes I kind of feel like that really stems from males. You know what I mean? Like men start talking about who's better, you know, who looks better, who, you know, all those little crazy stupid tests and little, you know, quizzes and things like that men would do, and, you know, young boys would do like in school and stuff like that, the cheating, those type of things really break down friendship, because women typically, you know, we have a tendency to kind of look at, you know, a person and see, are they kind, are they friendly, are they warm, are they inviting, you know what I mean? Like that's the type of thing that we go for. That's the type of thing that we kind of, you know, gravitate to, like the nurturing aspect of, you know, womanhood and even people, right? And so it's like when you start talking about like the comparativeness, you know what I mean? It kind of comes from men, right? We start looking as we get older, oh, who's getting married? Who's getting chose? Who's getting, you know what I mean? And so you start to kind of look at yourself in a different way, and it kind of breaks down female friendships, and it kind of just always draws this wedge of envy. I think the other thing that, you know, we're in a modern society, which what I'm about to say is nothing new, but it's like you start talking about like certain accomplishments. You know, there are a lot of people who may, you know, look at a person who has a certain accomplishment or has a certain thing, and it's like that becomes the standard, and so we kind of want to aspire to be that, or, you know, it's just a lot of different things when we start talking about envy, which I think at that point is kind of like universal. Like that's just something we all kind of struggle with. But yeah, I think that like the female breakdown thing is real, and I feel like a lot of that does start with like who's getting chose and who's getting picked, you know what I mean? And you can kind of just take that back to the last video I made like a while ago, just kind of talking about like, you know, female friendships in that regard. But I will also say this too, you know, sometimes as women we have to know like when to speak and when not to speak, you know what I mean? Like I think sometimes we can kind of overstep our boundaries in our friendships, and I think that that could be a bit evasive, and I think that that kind of breaks down friendships too in a way, because it's like, okay, you know, maybe your friend doesn't want your opinion on a certain thing, or maybe you're actually wrong about what you think you're right about, you know? And, you know, the thing about modern society today, and even just like giving advice and, you know, trying to be in somebody's business, or, you know, trying to call yourself giving somebody's advice, is like, we have to realize that we don't know everything. We have to realize that, like, especially once you become an adult, it's like, who are you to still be making decisions for people? You know what I mean? To the extent that you're making the decisions. And honestly, I feel like people who, like girlfriends like that, who are very controlling, who feel like they can tell you about your man and tell you about all these different things, especially when there's no, you know, or anything like that involved, like it's nothing crazy, you know, you're not missing no crazy stuff like that, like they're just kind of like that nitpicky type of, you know what I mean? It just kind of comes to a point where it's like, girl, you need to really stand down. You know what I mean? And honestly, I just kind of feel like you know, that's another thing that kind of breaks down female friendships. That would be point two. It's like, you know, you're just not really knowing your place. Like, you know, you're here to be a friend, you're here to be nurturing, you're here to be, you know, unconditional, you know, loving, and you know what I mean, like, be a friend and be everything that we typically tend to be for men. You know what I mean? I tell people this all the time. Women have no problem, you know, showing up in our relationships with men and giving them millions of chances and doing all these different things, but when it comes to our girlfriends, we can't seem to be supportive. You know, I tell people this all the time. I'm like, you know, everybody benefits from women's nurturing except for women, you know? So that's another thing too. So it's just like, you know, you have to really check yourself. Why do you feel the need to kind of, you know, get into somebody's life, especially in regards to an area of your life where you may not be, you know what I mean, where you want to be or whatever the case may be. So, you know, just all I'm saying is, you know, kind of be mindful of your girlfriend's life, you know, especially once y'all grown. Like, don't be feeling the need to try to control people. Like, nobody's a child here. You know what I mean? Like, let people make their own decisions. Like, you know, and I think that that's another thing too. So you kind of have that backbiting, gossipy thing. And I've learned, you know, even here as a cultural columnist, as a freelance writer, like, okay, opinions are just that. You know what I mean? Like, there are some things that I observed that's like, okay, yeah, there's some truth in that. Some people see that as well. There are some hard statistics that may, you know what I mean, not have been brought up in this opinion piece, but that's very solid. You know what I mean? But then there are some things where it's like, oh, okay, that was an opinion. I've grown, I've changed. I'm more self-aware now, you know, from 3 months ago from that column or something like that. I can see it from a different perspective. So that's another thing too, which brings me to my third point, right? Kind of tying it in. It's like, the lack of forgiveness and the lack of willingness to be like, girl, I was wrong. I was tripping. You know what I mean? Like, here I was mad at Derek. Girl, I didn't even realize like I was still hurting from that. And I'm projecting all this stuff onto you, you know? So it kind of all like ties in together. My first, second, and third point, like it always kind of goes back to men, but it's kind of crazy. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy. I would say the fourth thing is like, you know, just, you know, having girlfriends who just aren't really healthy and like aren't really developed in their own personal lives, right? Like a lot of people don't want to talk about this, and I feel like God brought me to this space, and I just kind of want to encourage other young women to do not things the way I did. Like, that's not at all what I'm saying, but what I am saying is there's really something in like having time to yourself and knowing yourself and really taking that time to like invest in you and your personal development, your emotional development, like, because you have to realize that you're about to go through this life doing everything that people have taught you to do, and a lot of times that was wrong, right? You know, a lot of times that was not right. So you're gonna have to spend a lot of time unlearning. I really invested in like self-improvement in my 20s. Like, even still, I'm still invested. Now I'm kind of leaning more so into my personal development my professional development as I'm getting out of my 20s. But that personal investment right there, girl, you're gonna have that for life. And that's the one thing that I feel like we don't really talk about. I mean, we kind of are at a space now where it's so lucrative, right? The self-improvement, you know, it's so lucrative, but it's kind of like puts you on this never-ending cycle. So it's also kind of like backstabby a little bit, like, you know, it doesn't really give you the same level of investment. But if you can really take that time to invest in yourself and really figure out who you are and like develop self-awareness, you're gonna have way better friendships. I feel like too often, you know, you talk about the jealousy, you talk about the pain, the trauma, all that stuff, like you bring all that into your friendships. Like we talk about that with males, like our relationships, you know, how we bring trauma and everybody's bringing baggage, but like with our girlfriends, we don't talk about that. And you showing up like that just, it oozes out. Like it oozes out in the friendship. You know what I mean? You're doing things, you're saying things that you just acting out of pocket. And it's like, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's one area that is like really work on becoming a whole woman. Like work on being confident within yourself. You know what I mean? Work on being confident within yourself. And it's like, as far as, you know, the whole like competitive thing, you just have to, again, work on being confident within yourself. Back to what I was saying though about my fourth point and like having a whole life and being a whole person, women have to kind of learn how to bond over hobbies. I kind of feel like we're always in two different categories and on two different extremes. I feel like I've always had girlfriends who are just like super boy crazy, or I've always had girlfriends who were just like so work to where it was just like, okay girl, like I'm not always trying to be empowered. Like sometimes I just kind of want to kick it, I want to laugh, I want to have fun, you know. And back in the day I had a girlfriend, I tell people this all the time, me and my girlfriend, we were really good friends because we had hobbies, we had shared hobbies, we loved makeup, we loved shopping, like, you know what I mean, we would just have a time, like we were just able to be women, we were able to laugh and be silly, y'all know how we are as women, you know what I mean, like, and we were just able to have a great time. And I feel like those friendships blossom the most. I feel like the whole thing about the self-awareness is like, you have to realize culture is always playing in our face as women. Like, it's always a marketing ad, it's always a new trend, because, you know, we're the most educated, we're the most, you know, women are the most consumers. Like, we're always probably some of the highest consumers. We're always buying things, we're always, you know what I mean? So it's like, there's always something being marketed to us. And right now it's like, you know, before it was like the girl boss and all these different things, which is nothing wrong with that. Like, y'all see me working, y'all, I'm gonna get it done, you know what I mean? But I more so just say that to say there's a whole process psychologically that women have to really undergo, which is unraveling and detaching yourself from your accomplishments. I was definitely someone who really grew up like that, like having been really close to my dad, which brings us to my 5th point. Having being really close to my dad, like, I just feel like I was someone who was like so heavily into my accomplishments. Like, I feel like that was the one thing that I just feel like people always looked at me as, like, people always judged me for that or the lack thereof. Like, I just was always so wrapped up in that being my entire identity. And you have to realize that that's just not true. I think, you know, living in a patriarchal system, sometimes that can be our philosophy that we adopt, but it's like, no, like, it's so true. Like, you have so much more worth and value as a woman. You have so much more worth and value as God's child, you know what I mean? So it's like, we have to kind of start to break free from that as well, because I think when you bring that type of attitude in your friendships with your girlfriends, like, you kind of start to become like that man, you know what I mean? Like, you kind of start to become that, and like, that's not very nurturing, that's not very relatable, you know what I mean? Like, and it may be relatable in the sense of like, okay, yeah, I'm a boss too or whatever, but it's like that, all that does is breed more competition, right? Because it's kind of built up on that patriarchal way of relating, where it's like, oh, what do you do, you know what I mean? Then it's like, now we are like competing with each other like men, and it should never give that, you know what I mean? Like, because we're women, like, okay, yeah, we've all done fabulous things, and we're going to continue to do fabulous things, we're going to celebrate one another, we're going to do all that, but at the end of the day, we're women. So we're gonna kick it, we're gonna laugh, we're gonna just kind of take the, you know what I mean? I know for me at least, you know, which brings us to my 5th point. Like, it depends on what you're looking for in your friendships. You know, I think for me in friendships, I'm looking to have fun. Like, I'm all of that. So I would say, like, being raised by my dad, I want to say this too, because I feel like it all kind of ties together. This one's a little one-off. I don't feel like this one flows in order, but I don't want to forget. I feel like growing up with my dad, being raised by my dad, I don't really have like man-hating tendencies. And I think this is actually really huge for today. And I just kind of want to encourage any young woman out there who you maybe not have had pretty, you know, very traumatic experiences. You may still be very young. Y'all know my work is in mentorship, so that's who I'm talking to anyway. Hope this video finds you. But it's like, you may not have had such traumatic experiences, or maybe you've, you know, went through your normal breakups or whatever the case may be. You're going to find that, especially today, because at this point it's now becoming like capitalized, right? It's literally commodifiable, but there really is like a man-hating agenda behind the feminist movement, and people don't really want to talk about this, like, but Bell Hooks even talked about this, right? Black philosopher, y'all know Bell Hooks, we don't have to get into that. Feminism was literally predicated on hating men, right? And after a while, the women started to kind of become like lesbians, you know, things like that. So if that's not the avenue you want to go down, just be mindful of that, because that's a real thing. Like, there are a lot of women who've kind of been bit by the man-hating bug. Me personally, I'm not a lesbo. I'm not gonna be, you know, doing that with anybody, so it was never giving that for me personally, but I have gone through my seasons of heartbreak. But I would just say that, you know, you have to kind of be mindful of like not growing up and having like a relationship with a man, or having your dad in your life. It will kind of change you in a way, which is not a bad thing, but it's like, you want to be mindful that you don't get bit by that flu bug that makes you like anti-men. Because I feel like when you think about like being around other women, you don't center your relationships on men, but it's like that vibe of like, oh, I just hate men. It's just like, you give off a weird vibe. You give off a weird vibe as a woman, because it's like, you know, like, you just give off a weird vibe, because it's like, it's just weird. Like, you know, like, I'm saying this like jokingly, like, you know, if y'all can clearly see, I'm like low-key joking, but like, I'm kind of serious with this. It just gives off a weird vibe. Like, it kind of gives off very uninviting, like, especially, you know, if you are a woman and you like men, or you have a husband, or you have a man, you know what I mean? Like, it just gives, like, you don't want to be around women like that. And I feel like women like that can sometimes just be a little daunting. Like, it's a little intimidating, because it's like, your vibe is just not really giving, it's just not giving, you know, and that nobody want to be around that. So you have to kind of check yourself, you know, check yourself with that, and just be mindful. You know, it doesn't mean you didn't, you know, y'all know God is our daddy at the end of the day. So, you know, that doesn't matter. That will never disqualify you. Okay. That will never disqualify you. You're a woman because God created you to be so, you know, so it's never going to give that. But, you know, you just want to be mindful of that, because that's a flu bug that goes around. And I feel like basing your friendships like having friendships based off of male hating and you know, all of that is not very healthy. Like, you're not gonna have no healthy girlfriends with that being the premise. Because what happens when you grow up out of that? I've met a lot of women through seasons. You know, there's, you know, and I actually got to this point too, where I'll say, which brings me to my number 6, is like, you know, I've learned that I kind of grew up out of the mentality of having a best friend. I feel like best friends are in high school because we could see each other every day. We could talk every day. It's giving, okay. You know, but I feel like as I become a woman and as I'm becoming a woman, my husband is my best friend. You know what I mean? It just kind of gives like, that's the only person I'm seeing every day. That's the only person I'm talking to every day. Like, you know, and I feel like the expectation of having best friends as women is very challenging because you're putting a certain level of expectation that may not be something that somebody can give you at this time. People may have other responsibilities, whether it be their job, whether it be their family, whether it be life, whatever the case may be. And I feel like that kind of breeds like breakdown in like bonding, communication. You know, you start thinking like, oh, you know, you're giving your friend side eye. You know, I used to be this way, like giving my friend side eye, like, oh, you know what I mean? But the truth is just like, you know, you have to grow out of that. Like, there is no best friends. Like, your husband is your best friend. You know what I mean? Like, it's not giving, you know, and it may not be that way for you. Like, you may have your best friends. That's fine. You know, I know for me, like, I'm working on building really good girlfriends and having like really great girlfriends, but it's just like, as far as like having a best friend, like, it's giving my husband, because it's like that's the only person I'm really talking to every day. And you know, being someone who has been somewhat needy and had those expectations for my girlfriends back in the day, and you know, that leading to breakdowns in friendships, I just kind of realized like nobody really has the time to like really invest, you know. And I do think that there are, you know, we should do that. Honestly, I think we should start investing, which I would say is number 7, you know, spend more time with your girlfriends. But if they can't, that's cool. So just kind of get out of the mindset of like having a best friend, because it's like, it's just not like that, you know what I mean? Unless y'all all got time like that, but I highly doubt it. Because even if you are someone who's like career focused, you know, there's responsibilities, there's obligations that come with like, you know, working a certain job. Like, you know, the workload is different, the priorities are shifted. You know, a lot of times, y'all know if y'all on salary, you're working more, and a lot of times outside of work, and there's events, and you know, depending on your industry, like it's not giving that. So nobody has time for that. So just kind of get up out of that mindset. It's okay to have good friends. It may not be your best friend, but it's okay. Okay, doesn't mean anything's wrong. And then the 7th thing I would just say is like, you know, we fail to really make time for our friends. You know, me personally, being a wife, if, you know, eventually I'll be a mother. I just will never be someone who's like, I can't see my friends all year because I have kids. That's crazy. You know what I mean? That's crazy. Like, I just think that's crazy. So, you know, if you want friends, you have to, you know, the Bible says if you want friends, show yourself as friendly. You know, so be the type of person to show yourself as friendly. Like, don't be somebody who, you know, can't nobody get a hold of you. Don't be the person, you know, who's always canceling on people, who's always canceling on your friends, who's, you know, you don't make time for people. You're never gonna have friends like that. Like, and you don't deserve them, because what do you need friends for? You clearly don't want them. You know what I mean? So don't be so like ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, respond to the text. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you know, acknowledgement. That's like the whole key in having a relationship, is giving like acknowledgement. Like, acknowledge your friends, you know. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it when we talk about like female friendships and like women's friendships. And I'll just say like number 8, keep God first. You know what I mean? Like I said, I've learned, you know, there are people you meet in life through seasons. I look forward to my next project, you know what I mean? Because girl, you're gonna meet a lot of people in this life. You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean that everybody is meant to carry out the vision, you know, to carry out the fulfillment of God's purpose, and you know, to see the completion of his work in your life. You know, there are some people you meet and it's like, oh, we had a season, you know what I mean? And sometimes those seasons end, but you also need to know when that season is ending, because you have to get ready for your next, you know? So don't be so caught up in that, you know what I mean? Like, stay prayerful over your friendships, stay prayerful over the people that you let into your life. I think, you know, we always put emphasis on protecting worldly assets, but I've learned like, protect your spirit, protect your peace, you know, cover your household in prayer, you know, women of God. Like, don't be so quick to just let anybody in your life. Don't be so quick to just let people, you know what I mean? Because it's a whole lot of chaos out here, and y'all know, back to my whole purpose, a lot of things be centered around, you know, so it's just a whole thing. So don't be that type of person. But yeah, so put God first. Learn to figure out what does, you know, being a woman mean to you. You know, figure out what you want in your friendships. You know, some people may not want that. Some people may not want to always go to, you know, women's conference, networking conference, and you know, that may not be their thing. Like, I know for me, it's like, girl, you know what I mean? Like, I'm looking for a whole completely atmosphere. I'm looking for friends who have completely different characteristics, you know? So it's like, you figure out what works for you. You figure out, you know what I mean? Like, you figure that out for you, and you start to base your friendships on those things. And like I said, put God first. I know for me, it's like not really being friends with believers. It's just not giving that, because it's like, okay, am I here to convert you? This is giving assignment. This is not giving destiny. It's giving assignment. I'm here on a mission trip. Okay. No, I'm serious. So yeah, just figure out what that looks like for you. I hope this video was helpful. Peace.